What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. In this video we are going to be building a to-do list app in Bubble, and this is one of those classical apps that you need to understand how to build whenever you're learning a new platform. And so I'm going to show you the whole process that you need to build it. We're going to be looking at the views you need to build, the data types, different workflows, everything that you need in order to build it. And by building this kind of app, you're going to be building and basically honing a skill that's going to take you very far. You'll be able to build a lot more complex apps later on, okay? And so whenever I start with building any kind of app, regardless if it's a simple app or a more complicated app, I like to start with my views, meaning like I want to see and I want to really put it on paper, the kind of views that the app will have, because everything kind of starts with the views. After the views, I work on my data types. And after the data types, we work on different workflows. And so in this example, there's not going to be a lot of workflows, or the workflows are going to be very, very simple. So I don't really go out and build a separate screen for that. And so let's start with the views. And so what kind of views do we need? We have the list view, which is going to be the basic view that's going to list the to-do items. Okay, we have a detail view, which is essentially where they can basically click on a particular to-do item and go to the detail view where they can see on an entire page the different fields, the different data associated with that specific item. We also have an add view, right? This is where they can add the view, and then we have a delete view, okay? And so the other view that I don't have listed here is the edit view, which is kind of similar to the detail view in case they want to edit some things in their specific view, in their specific list of to-do items. The next thing that I want to talk about is the data types, right? In this example, we only really have one data type, which is the task, because everything kind of revolves around the task. You know, the list view is basically an array of tasks. Detail view is basically one task. Add view is basically a view that adds a new task. And delete is something that deletes a new task. Now, this is what's called a CRUD app, C-R-U-D. And CRUD stands for create, read, update, or delete. And so this is something that you have to understand. This is the very, very basics of kind of dealing with Bubble, dealing with something called an MVC, which is a model view controller, which is kind of what Bubble is, right? And in an MVC, you have a model, which is kind of your models, your data types. You have a view, which is your views, and then you have a controller, which is a way where the views, actually the actions taken on the views affect the data types. And that is something called an MVC, a model view controller, which is something I'm going to be talking about later on in the video. And so back to the data types. We have a task. The task is basically a data structure, and we have a name, description, we have a due date, and we have the user, because, you know, when you're building something like this, you may have multiple users, and each user has their own list of tasks. And so a task is not going to be a general task. It's typically going to be assigned to a certain user, especially in a multi-user app. But in this idea, in this kind of tutorial, we're just working with something very, very simple. And so this is a really good start. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to go out and we need to build these views. Okay, so I'm going to go into Bubble. I basically started a new app here. I basically created a new app, and here I am in my new to-do list app. Okay, and so when you go into the page, I have my index. And index is essentially a list of views. And I'm going to go and build this, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can go out and build this. Then I have another page, and this is the new item page. Okay, we have this new item here. And then I also have an edit item, right? They can essentially edit an existing item. And then the delete, which is basically an action. They're going to click on a button, and that's going to go out and delete the specific item. Next, I want to show you the data. And so here I'm looking at this data tab. And we have different data types. So in this example, I only have the user, and the user just has a name, right? Everything else here is kind of the built-in fields here. And we're going to create a new data type called item. We're going to create this together. And so I just created a new data type. And now we're going to basically add new fields to this specific data type. So we want name. I'm going to create a new field called name here. Field type is going to be text. We're going to go and create this. The next thing I want to create is a description field. So we have description here. It's also going to be text. and we are going to create it. The next one I want to create is a due date. So I'm just going to call it due or just call it date. Actually, let's do due date just to keep it consistent. And this is going to be a date. We're going to create this. And the next one you want to do is the user, right? So this is something like the user owner or something like this. And this is going to be a user owner, and we're going to put a user here in case we're going to be working with a multi-user system where we're going to have multiple users, and we want to actually assign this specific to-do item to a specific user. And so we have this here as well. Now we create it. So we have description, we have due date, we have name, and we have a user owner who is the owner of that specific item, right? And so that is what we have here. Now we have it. We have the type as a name. We're going to call it an item here. We're going to rename it. And now we have an item and a user here. And so in this example, we're kind of done with the data we have. The beautiful thing about Bubble is we can also go into app data, and we can actually add new entries. We could look at the entries. So it simplifies a lot of the development for us, because we don't have to use another tool to go to the database. Makes it a lot simpler. The next thing I want to do is I want to start building the views, meaning like the actual pages, right? And so you want to start with the index, right? You want to start with the read-only views because they're going to be easier to test. And then we're going to start with the add item view, so we can start adding items, and then we're going to start testing. So we're going to be testing as we're developing, okay? And this is a really effective way to build an app very quickly, okay? And so we have a to-do list here. This is the only thing we have. So if we go to the elements tree, I basically started with a template pages. I deleted a lot of things. I just left the header. And the header is very simple. If you want to modify the header, you just go to the page, you go to the header here, and you're going to be on the header. You can basically double click this. You can search for free images. You can search here, and you can basically add a new image. It's using Pexels and Splash Base. These are free, royalty-free images that you can use inside the app, and you can modify it as much as you want. Now, I don't want to talk too much about design here, because design is another topic altogether. It may be a topic for one of the future videos. I want to mainly focus on the application level stuff. So we're going to go back, we're going to exit out of here, and we're going to go back to our index. And what I want to do now is I want to create a page that displays a list of to-do items, okay? And so we have a to-do list. This is the only thing we have. We have this hero content, which is this part right here. And what I want to do is I want to go and pick a repeating group, and I want to drag it in here, okay? And so I want to do this. I have this repeating group. We're going to expand it all the way. And before we actually work with the repeating group, I want to add some column labels here, right? Because this group is going to have like 3 or 4 columns, but the labels are not going to be repeating. It's just the data is going to be repeating. So we're going to go into text. We're going to drag it here. And so you don't want to drag it on the group. You want to drag it here, and then you can kind of modify it, right? So this is so, you see what I did there? By dragging it inside the group, it becomes a repeating field. We do not want that. We want to take it higher, and that way it's only once. Now we double click on it. We name it the name of the item. The next thing I want to do is I want to copy, Control-C, Command-C, Command-V on the Mac, Control-C, Command-V on the PC. We want to drag it here, double click, and then we can put description here. Next thing is we have the due date. We're going to do the same, and we're going to put it here. We have the due date here. And last but not least, I want to have a field where we can basically edit this specific item, right? So we're going to copy and paste this. And this might be something like an action field, right? Something like action. It might be edit, it might be something else, and see if we can arrange that really nicely. There we go. And so now we have the headers. And the next thing you want to do is you want to assign the type of content to this main repeating group, right? This is going to be an item, right? This is going to be an item. And when we click on the data source, we want to do a search. So we can list all the items. But typically you want to do a search for. It opens a new and it opens a new dialog box, and we pick item, and then you can add a constraint. You can put something like where user owner equals is current user, something like this, right? And that way it's only going to display our own, right? The ones that we created. Once we create it, it's going to be assigned to the user owner. So I have this set up. This is absolutely fine. Right now, we don't have any items here for any users. So it's not going to get displayed. But if I go back to data, just to test it real quick, I'm going to click on all items and I'm going to click on new entry. And so before we go further, I want to go ahead and create the user here because we're going to be creating this item for testing. It's going to be assigned to our user, right? So we're going to create a new user real quick. And this is type of thing is username is James, james@james.com, just to keep it simple. And then we click on create. And it creates it. We're going to hide this. We say, got it. Now we have James here, create a date, all of that. And now we can create a sample item here. So we're going to go back to all items. We're going to click on new entry. And we are going to type item 1 description, due date, let's say November 5th, 2020, 12:30 p.m. We're going to have that. And name is going to be item 1 name here. And then for the user, you can click on something called change the search field. Okay, so initially when you're doing it, we have the fields for the item. I typically want it to be by the item's name instead of the ID. And for the user, by default, I believe it's set to email. And so that is why you have to type in the email. But we're going to put name just to keep it simple. We're going to click on save. And now when we type James, it's going to pull it up, right? See, it pulls it up. Let's type this again. It cleared all the data for us. So item 1 desk. Due date 12/30/2020, 12:30 p.m. And then the name is item 1 name. And now it's assigned properly to our user. We can click on create. So it's going to get created. And then it should be basically we have the user and we have the items. It's listed here. And now we have an item that was created manually. And the reason I did that is for testing purposes, right? So if we go to design and I click preview, hopefully it's going to get displayed. If not, we can take a look at what's happening here. But let's see. So it's not getting displayed. So the reason it's not getting displayed is we actually forgot the most important thing. We forgot to create the fields. Very, very simple thing. We need to basically pick a text field and we need to drag it. Now, when you are drag it, you see how the line, if you drag it to the right place, right under the line, you're going to see the line highlight. And that's kind of what you want, because if you do that, it becomes a repeating field. And now you can kind of drag it here and it modifies it, right? So we're going to copy and paste it here. We're going to paste it another one. We're going to paste due dates. And then we're going to paste another fields. I like to basically set up all my fields. And then I want to modify the individual fields, right? So let's say we want to make this repeating group a little bit bigger, just so it's, so we're going to make the hero content just a little bit wider. And then we can make this repeating group a little bit wider, okay? And there we go. All right, so now the first thing you want to do, let's align it really nicely here, just under the thing. And we're going to do that. So I'm not I'm not really a professional when it comes to design. I'm just going to show you the code, and then you can design it however you want to, however you want to see fit. And so we're going to click on this field, and this field is going to be a dynamic field. So it's not going to say edit me. We're going to click on this and we're going to say insert dynamic data. And we want this current sales item, okay, item, and then name. Okay, that's kind of what we want. We want current sales items name. And then for this one, we want the dynamic, we want current sales item. We want it to be description in this case. We have description. For due date, we want dynamic data. We want current sales item due date, okay? And then action, this might be actually a button. So I'm going to delete this one here. And this is going to be a button, right? Because actions are buttons. And what exactly is it going to do? Well, we don't know yet, right? It might be an edit field. So for instance, we could just say edit. We can just set edit item, something like this. It could be a delete field. It's really up to you what your design is. But I think we can just make it an edit for now. Let's see if we can arrange it really nicely. And so now we have it all set up. And so a good way to test it is when you're in your design screen, right? You're here in this design screen. You can go to data and you can click on all users and you can basically run this app as this user, okay? Because remember, the items are tied to a specific user. This is the user that's going to log in and they're going to be using this ad. So we're going to click on run as that user and you're going to see the items showing up specifically for that user's item. Because if we create a new user, let's say we create a new user and this is going to be Tom at tom.com. I know I'm being original. We can click on create. And if we run it as that user, so if we run as, it should not show up because that user does not have any items, okay? And so this is a good way to test it. Of course, in production, you're gonna have user authentication. They're gonna actually log in as that user. It's all gonna be set up. But when you're testing, when you're designing it, you're basically running it as an administrator. And so you cannot really do it correctly. And so you have to test it as a run as, and that is a good way to see if the items are being showing up for the user properly, okay? And so this is a way to test it. Now, the next thing, now this is working, right? The next thing we want to do is we want to create a new item list. So I already have a page set up. I basically created a new page. I basically clicked on here, add a new page, and I created a very simple page. A new to-do item. We have name, we have the name here, we have description, and then what we want is the due date. So I'm gonna make it a little bit longer. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna select all of this. We're gonna drag it down. And then I'm gonna create a new field. I'm gonna copy this field, paste it here, and then I'm gonna drag a date field. So we're gonna have, so here's our date and time picker here. We're gonna put it here. It's a little bit big, so we're gonna resize it. And now we have a date picker, okay? And now we have our typical to-do item, the new one, right? And so the way this works is that we have our fields name, we have different fields that we configure. This is input A. We want to modify, so you want to change that, and you want to put it item name here. So we're gonna put item, or you can just put name. Let's make it item name. For this is gonna be item date. We're gonna have item name. We're gonna click here, and this is gonna be item dash name. And then for the description, we are gonna put item desk. I like desk because, and then we can basically double check. This is item name, and that should be item date. Okay, and that's kind of what we have. This is, and that is the way you want to have. So you have this item name, you have item date, and item description. And then when they click on create, it's gonna go create it, and it's gonna assign it to the user. And then what we need to do is we need to create a workflow. So we're gonna click on this button, do start edit workflow here. Then we're gonna click on action. And what we want is we want account data things, create a new thing. We're gonna create the new thing, and we want to create an item. And then what we want to do is we want to create an item, and then we need to configure the fields, okay? And so for instance, description is gonna be item desk. We have that value. Then set another field. We're gonna have due date is gonna be item date value. Set another field. We are gonna have name item name value. And then we have the owner, right? And this is gonna be user owner is gonna be current user, okay? Current user, whoever is logged in. Okay, we're gonna have that set up, and that is all we need to do. And so we can actually test it out and see if it's working. So I'm gonna run as James. So I'm gonna go back to our data, and I wanna run as James so that it sets it up for me correctly. And that's how it's gonna work when. So we have this new to-do item, and I'm gonna type. Let's say we type name 2. We have 1127, and the description is description 2. So we're gonna click on create task. And that's all we did. And now let's go back and let's look at our data. So we have all the items, and now we created 2 of them because I basically clicked create twice. And so so now we have 2 items. They're assigned to the user correctly. And so if we go back to our design, we go back to the index, and I basically preview. Now I want to do it as the user, right? So I want to go to data, and I want to run as the user, right? Run as James. It's going to reload this page, and we should see all the items that we created. And here are the items, right? They're nicely aligned, assigned to our current user, which is James in this case. Right now, let's talk about how we can design the edit item functionality, since that is the action we chose upon to use here, right? So we have this list here. We have a bunch of edit items. And so the first thing you need to do is you need to create the page for edit item. Thankfully, you can just take a new item once you take that, and you can basically go in here and you can right click and you can say clone this page, and you're gonna clone it as a new page. I like to have everything organized, so I have my new to-do item page, and I'm gonna create an edit item page. So I can basically click. So now that I created a new page, you can modify it. So this said new item, I basically modified it, edit to-do item. And now that we have it modified, the next thing that you wanna do is you wanna create the fields. Now, unlike the new item, you want this one to basically be a existing fields. You want these fields to be already filled in already. That way the user can modify it, and then the workflow is gonna work properly. And so if we go in here, the first thing that you need to do when you're editing a page, when you're not creating a new page, also when you're creating a new page actually as well, is you wanna go in here and you wanna double click on the page. And when it says type of content, you want it to be item, okay? You want the Bubble app to know exactly with what kind of data it's dealing with. So I basically put item, you can put user, since we only have user and item data types, you put item in here. And then when you go to this field here, for initial content, you can basically click on here and you can basically put current page item, okay? Because that is what the page understands, that is the type of page. And then later on, we're gonna be passing the data correctly to this item from the workflows, which I'm gonna show you in a second. So once you click on this field here, you want to click on this initial content, and you want it to be current page item. And then when you do that, you want it to be name, current page item's name. For the due date, you want current page item, and you want it to be due date. You click here, you have due date. And for the description, same thing, current page item description, same exact thing. Let's fix it up a little bit here. Maybe align it a little bit nicer, something like this. Okay, and then we have this edit here run, and this edit is gonna go to the workflow, okay? So now that we have it set up, if you go back to our list items, the index, and you go back to the index, we need to set up our workflow correctly so that it knows, the edit page knows what kind of data to show off for which page. So if we double click on edit item, we click on start edit workflow, we're gonna have this one workflow called go to page, right? And if you delete it, I can delete it and I can show you from the beginning. You click here to add an action. You're gonna click on navigation and you're gonna go to page. And then destination is gonna be edit item. Okay, and data to send is gonna be current sales item. Very, very logical, right? We want the current sales item. We can even send index, but the item is a lot easier. And that way you don't need to sell complicated data. And that is all you have to do. We don't need to send parameters. We don't need to do anything of that. That's like more advanced features. And then when we go back to our design, and I'm gonna click on preview, you're gonna see that once we click on edit item, it's gonna go and load the edit item view correctly. So if I click on edit item here, it's gonna display it correctly because it's passing the data. And so we have edit one name, edit one description. Let's go back. Let's try with another item real quick. So if we click on this, you're gonna see new data. It's passing it correctly, which is kind of what we want, right? So now let's go back to our app and let's actually finish that functionality. We're gonna go back to edit item, and now we have the edit. And now all you have to do when they click on it, you're gonna double click, you're gonna do start edit workflow. And when it clicks, you want it to go to data and you want it to make changes to the thing. And what is the thing that we're making changes to? Take a guess. This is going to be current page item, and that is all. And these are the fields from the actual form, right? So we have item desk value, item date value, and item name value. Because once we go to our forms, these are the name of the fields. So as you can see, it says item name here, item date here, and item description here. So when they click on edit, we're going to go to the workflow, and then we basically configure it. So the fields in the data type that this page is actually set for, this is item, current page item, these are the fields. They're actually taking the values. They're taking the values from the form, right? Item desk, item desk value, item date value, item name value. And so once we do that, let's go back to our list, and I can show you that it's going to be working beautifully. So once we load this, I can show you exactly how it works. So let's say I want to edit this item. I click on edit, and I already have an item here. So let's put I wrote something like modified. I'll write something like modified here, and then we click on edit. And it's not really giving us a status or anything. And then we're gonna go back and we're gonna click on preview so we can see it from the beginning. And then we see it's modified to both of them. And so this is working fine. And now what we have is a list of name, description, due date, and we have an action, and then we can basically edit them. Now, another thing that you might want to do is you may want to delete them, right? So this delete could be done here. So let's say we can have another column here for deleting, or it could actually be on our delete, on our edit. So it's really up to you how you want to implement it. You can have a delete here as well. And so let's say I think the easiest thing is to keep the overall clicks low. And so let's say we're going to rename this to edit. We're going to rename this to edit here. And then we're going to add another one. I'm going to go here. I'm going to copy and paste this. And then let's see if we can extend this a little bit further. Let's go and extend their parent element. This is the hero image is wide enough, but I think this hero content is a little bit too narrow. So let's extend that. And then we can basically extend the repeating group here as well. And so we're going to extend it here as well. And now this thing right here, so we're going to go in here. We have this here. So we have this here, and then we have another edit. So this is the edit. This one is going to be called delete. Okay, and then we have it here set up. And then the same thing, I'm just going to copy and paste it, making sure that it pastes correctly. And this is not going to be edit anymore. We're going to go in here. We're going to put delete. Delete. So I'll just keep it delete, and then I'm just going to make it edit. They know it's an item. Just going to keep it a little bit more nicer, a little bit nicely arranged. And this is going to be a delete. And so this is the same thing. This we have an edit here, and this we have a delete. So we're going to start and edit a workflow for this one. And so when they click on it, we want to actually go to data, and we want to delete the thing. And the thing we want to delete is the current sales item. Okay, it's basically getting this from the repeating group, right? So it's current sales item. We're going to do that. And that's all we need to do. And so once we go back to our design, we are going to go in here. It's already there. We're going to click on preview. It should delete it correctly. So we're going to delete one of these duplicate ones here. And so it loaded. I'm going to click on delete, and it's gone automatically. Okay, I can even delete this one, and it's gonna be gone. And that's it. It's gone. It knows exactly. That's kind of the beauty of Bubble, is that it's aware of what's happening. It's data aware. You don't need to pass data back and forth like you should be doing when you're doing it manually. So it's really nice to do that. And then you can we can go out and we can edit a new item. All right, so let's see what we have so far. We have a new item here, which is our new item screen that basically assigns it to the user. We have an edit item that basically edits the item. We also have the delete thing. So for editing, I want to create a little bit of a kind of an alert, right? Because once we click it here, nothing happens. So I'm going to create an alert so that it basically displays. So then we can have this alert here, something like this here. And then when you edit it, so let's call this alert, alert 1 or something like this. I know I'm being very descriptive here. And so make this element position at the top. It's all defaults here. And then what we want, so this alert is not going to get displayed initially. So if you load this page, you should not see this alert. It's only going to happen after something happens, right? So we're going to go back to this workflow. We're going to start and edit the workflow. So we're making changes, and then we want the alert to happen, right? So what we want to do is we want to go into our element action, and we want to, we can set focus, we can show the message, okay? So we can show the message for that alert, right? So we have this alert, and it's going to show a message in the workflow. So let's go and configure this alert really quick. We're going to go back to design. We're going to edit this alert, and then we're going to say item successfully deleted. Let's make sure we spell that, successfully deleted. And that's all we have to do. We can obviously, there's a standard alert, information alert, you have different alerts, success alert, so maybe a success alert, things like that. And so when we load it, it should not be displayed right now because we haven't executed the workflow. So let's go, and actually we've done it for the wrong one. This is for edit. So let's make this edited. We're gonna have both alerts here, edited. We're gonna do this, and then we're gonna have it. So we're gonna go in here, start and edit workflow. We have a show message, make changes, item successfully edited. Let's go to our delete, or actually, for edit is fine. We're gonna do the same thing for delete as well. we're gonna go back to the index, and we're gonna put an alert here as well. So we're gonna drag this alert here, and that's gonna basically say we're gonna do a success alert, and we're gonna do item successfully. Okay, we have this done. And this is gonna be a workflow here as well. We're gonna double click, start and edit workflow, and then we're gonna do this. We are gonna go into, let's see, we're gonna go into element actions, show message, item successfully deleted, right? Because that's the only alert we have. And then once we delete it, it basically is gonna show there. So let's try this first with the edit option that we have. Let's see if that alert is showing up, and then we're gonna try it with the delete option as well. So if I click on edit, it's gonna go to the new page, and we can basically edit. So I'm just gonna type new things, and I'm gonna click on edit. And there we go, item successfully edited. And then, you know, a good option would be to go back to the main screen as well, because I don't think this person is gonna be editing it constantly. So now that I think about, let's go and let's go to our edit here, and let's keep creating this workflow. So it's gonna say edit it, and then we are gonna say this is fade out. We have various seconds here. And then what we wanna do is we want to basically, we can do a navigation. We can go to another page. There's a couple of things that we can do. We can do custom events. And so later on, you can navigate it to the next page as well. So we can say, we can add a navigation, go to page. It could go to the previous page actually. So let's do that. Navigation, go to previous page. Okay, so that we have this. We have it set up. And so let's go back. This is our, let's go to the index. Let's preview it. And then we're gonna do the delete stuff as well. So we have this here. We're gonna click on edit, and then we're gonna basically edit their data here. So let's say we delete this now, and we're gonna click on edit, and then it basically shows it and redirects it to the previous page. I think this is a nice workflow. It shows it enough that the person sees that the action took place, and then basically redirected it. And now for the delete, let's go and create a new one, so we'll still have something still available to play with. So let's go back to the design. Let's go to this new item, and let's click on preview, and let's create a new item really quick. Okay, so we're gonna do James. So let's actually run it as the James user. We're gonna run it as a James user here. We're gonna do this here, and then we're gonna create a new item. And this is James to do name, date, we're gonna leave it on default, and then James to do description. We're gonna create this task, and then we also want to have an alert. So I'm gonna quickly do an alert here as well, and we're gonna redirect it back to the list just to make it the flow a little bit nicer. Okay, so we're gonna go back to Bubble here, to our design. We're gonna go to this new item. We're gonna actually drag an alert here. We're gonna place it just below the title here, and we're gonna say item successfully created. This is gonna be a success alert. Obviously, we have it set up, and then we're gonna redirect to the previous page. So we're gonna double click on the button, start edit workflow. We're gonna go into element action, show message, and it knows that. And then we're gonna do navigation, go to the previous page, and that's all we need to do. So now we can test it out. We're gonna go into preview and see what it looks like here. I'm just entering random information here. We're gonna create a task successfully created, and then it should redirect it. And it basically, let's see, let's try this from the list view as well. Let's go to the list view here so that it can redirect it properly. And actually on the list view, let's create a button to add a new item, and that way it can redirect it properly to the previous page. So I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna basically add a button here. We're gonna add a button right on top here, and it's gonna say add new item. Okay, and this is gonna start edit workflow. We're gonna do this, and this is gonna navigate, go to the page, new item. That's it. We're not sending any data. It knows exactly who we are. We don't need to send it's a new item. We're gonna go back here, and we're at the index. Let's preview this right here, and let's see what we have here so far. And then we have this new item. It's not fully organized, which is absolutely fine. So we can click on add new item. We're gonna do this James new item button. We're gonna paste this here. This is description. We're gonna create task. It shows the alert and it goes back. And now we see that this one was right here. We can do edit, and let's see if it redirects it properly. We're gonna remove this couple of fields and just put desk. We're gonna click on edit. There we go, and it redirected it. Then we can basically click on delete. Item successfully deleted. So right now everything works, and everything works for a specific user. In this case, it's my user, because if we go back to our data, we should see it. So we have all items, and they're all assigned to this user, James. So it's all being assigned correctly. And later on, when we have authentication, when we have multiple users, we can actually create content that's going to be assigned to different users as you see fit. Because if you want to build a real app, you need authentication, you need multi-user, right? Because you're not going to be the only person using it. And so there's a lot of things that we can do. We can redesign it. We can add new functionality. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we're kind of done. We have the index, we have the new item, we have edit item, we have reset password, we have a 404 not found, and then we have add new item, edit, delete. And right now it works well for what it does. It's a fully functional app. It displays. There could be a lot more functionality. We can set reminders, we can create a new design and all of that. And in some of the future videos, that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. And so for the purpose of this tutorial, this is pretty much all I wanted to show you. I really hope you've gotten value here. There's a lot of little gotchas that you need to kind of be aware if you want to build an app like this. The good news is that if you're able to build an app like this, then everything else in the future is going to be a lot easier and a lot simpler, because it's just going to be a lot more complicated. But in a way, it's just going to be, we're just going to be adding new fields, adding new things, and it's going to be a lot easier once you understand these basic concepts. All right, guys. So in the future, I plan to make a lot more videos. I'm making a lot more complex apps, answering your questions. And so if you have any questions, leave them below. If you're not sure about something, leave them below. But I would highly advise you and really suggest you to go out and try to build this app that I built here. And you're going to have very, very good practice. And that way it's going to be easier to build more complex apps. All right, guys. So if you enjoyed this video, smash the like button, leave a comment below. That really helps. And if you want to see more videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not yet a subscriber, because I'm going to be making a lot more videos. We're going to be looking at a lot of new cool tools. And you definitely do not want to miss future videos if you are interested in these kinds of topics. So once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.